Hello, good afternoon. I am Jonelle Zachary, responsible for outreach and training here at the Dibble Institute. I am so happy to welcome all of you to today's webinar, How Teams Get Stuck, Navigating Relationship Skills and Real Life. We're honored and thrilled to have Mary McCoy Thompson for our August webinar. But before I introduce her and turn the floor over to her, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items that we have today. First, if you could, insofar as housekeeping settings, please check your audio settings. If you cannot hear this presentation, you can maybe go to your Zoom control panel. If that does not work, please dial in using the number that you found in your email invitation. The chat. The chat is currently open, so please say hello. Tell us where you're from. We like warm, smiley faces. You can find the chat in your control panel of your Zoom platform, and we'd love to hear who you are, where you're joining us from today. We will be keeping the chat open so you can engage with Mary and me at different points throughout the presentation. However, if you do have a question for us, please go ahead and find the Q&A box now. That Q&A box allows for you to insert any question you may have into that setting where we can go back and review and answer it either at the end of today's presentation, or if we run out of time, you simply will receive a response from us later with Q&A attached. Again, please put all of your questions in the Q&A box so we don't miss them while you're saying hello to us and sending us some love throughout the presentation. We want to make sure that we're able to address them during our time or at the end of the webinar, and putting them in the proper place helps us to do that. This also helps everyone insofar as handouts. We will be placing handouts in the chat. Next slide, please. Thank you. We will be placing handouts in the chat so that way you will be able to access some of the materials that we are sharing in today's presentation. I'll talk about Charlie and Helen Dibble in just a little bit, but Carly will share the handouts with you at the end of our presentation today, as well as you'll be able to find them later as they become available for downloads. Lastly, closed captioning. Closed captioning is available should you choose to use it. That is also in your control panel in Zoom. So, okay, that was all the housekeeping and the resources that I have to go over with you now. Let's talk about Dibble for just a moment before we turn it over to our webinar presenter for today. A little bit about Charlie and Helen Dibble. So about the Dibble Institute, first we start with our wonderful founders who gave us a name. This is both Charlie and Helen Dibble. Charlie did a lot of work with youth during his retirement, and he saw many of them having difficulties around their relationships or when their parents were having difficulties with their relationships and how that impacted children. Charlie had the brilliant idea to translate research into teaching tools that could help be made widely available. So the Dibble Institute is not a direct service provider. Rather, we develop research-based practices and make them available for people like yourselves. Next slide, please. The Dibble Institute is an independent national nonprofit organization. We have clients in all 50 states and some territories, as well as international, but that's just to put it lightly. We have folks all over who are providing direct services. And last year, based on our very conservative estimates, we believe that our clients have reached almost 117,000 youth based on the materials that they've purchased. So we're very grateful to all of you who are doing this important work with young people. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So as a nonprofit, it's important to talk about our mission and what guides us. First, it is our mission. Our mission is to empower youth and young adults with skills to build and sustain healthy interpersonal and romantic relationships. We know that these conversations with them pulls a lot of levers: pregnancy prevention, dating violence prevention, mental health and behavioral health levers, job readiness, and more. In addition to our mission, our work is guided by our values, like research. Research is an instrumental part of what we do. All of our programs are research-based, and we continue to strive for evaluations on our programs to demonstrate their impact and effectiveness. And with this, it also means that updates are made to our programs as we learn new information and highlighting research done on our programs like we're doing. And we like to celebrate great research, which is another reason why we're particularly excited about today's presentation. Another core value is that we believe in safe, stable, and healthy, nurturing families of all different formations. And this is our goal for young people to be raised in these families. Lastly, we believe that relationship education is for everyone. No matter the setting, we can all learn important skills to help meaningful and co-working relationships thrive. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest today. So many of you, if you've joined us before, if you've been here before to a Dibble webinar, you may notice that we take a unique approach in providing um, uh, pathways for experts to share their research and their findings with us, namely the royal we, us. But today we're going to take a little bit of a different approach where Mary, our webinar presenter, and myself will be walking you through a dialogue. So we will be conversing back and forth, which is generally a little different than a typical webinar. So I'm excited to introduce Mary McCoy Thompson, Executive Director of Dovetail Learning and co-author of The Heart of Resilience. Through Dovetail's We Are Resilient work, she helps educators, facilitators, and helping professionals understand what happens under stress and build practical skills for stronger relationships, healthier teams, and more resilient responses. While co-working with Mary for this webinar, I have experienced how she demonstrates these skills in her world of work by elevating the meeting space with skills to center ourselves before jumping right into the work. I appreciate that greatly, Mary, and I hope that all of you will learn much from her while we spend time in our conversation today in dialogue. And I hope that you enjoy our engagement together. So, Mary, welcome and thank you for being here.
Oh, Janelle, thank you so much. I am so delighted to be here today. We at Dovetail Learning have so much respect for the work of Dibble Institute, and we overlap on so many of the things that we do. We also take research and translate it into tools that people can use and do training on those tools so that people really have an understanding and they're taking the best research for today and how can I improve my life. So what's our mission here at Dovetail Learning? We cultivate resilience in those who care for and empower others so all can respond with intention, strengthen relationships, and create connected communities. A simple way of saying that is we help people discover how to be the best possible version of themselves. We know that. A little bit about me. I have lived and worked all over the world for a lot of different nonprofits, always focused on education and healthcare. And I can remember being in many situations in which teams get stuck because it's just a common thing that happens, right? So you're going along. One of these photos is some of my work in Kibera in Nairobi, West Africa. And we were doing a lot of really good work. And we got to a point that it was not achieving what we hoped. And we were just stuck. And we really had to step back, take the time, what was happening for us, with us, and how were we communicating with those we were trying to work with so that we can actually have a bigger impact. And I know that taking the time to actually look at what's happening within the team can make a huge difference. I've seen it in my work and I've seen it in so many of the people that we've trained. So I'm very excited about sharing what I've learned with all of you today. A little bit about Dovetail Learning. We were founded in 2008 as a K through 6 social emotional learning program. We had a lot of success for that. Our program was adopted in 38 states. We served 250,000 kids. And we realized the big sticking point for most of the children being able to really take this work into their world, into their adult life, was that adults did not have the skills necessarily to help kids. And so we did a big pivot in 2019 because we recognized this critical gap and there were not enough people helping adults learn the skills so we can all help children and each other be the kind of people that we need to be. So we launched We Are Resilient in 2020, began supporting teams and leaders across many sectors. We've trained more than 6,000 people. And in 2024, we published The Heart of Resilience, a book that gives more information for people who like to learn that way. So we understand that in the middle of every difficulty lies an opportunity, and the difficulty of children not having the skills that they need because adults didn't have the skills. We saw that as an opportunity for us to make our greatest impact, and so that's what we did. Before we get any further, I want to say that this work applies for all types of groups, right? So we can have, whether it's a facilitation group, I know a lot of you out there are doing facilitation directly with youth and young adults, or whether it's your team that's an executive team that's trying to manage an organization, that can all make a difference. And so the work that we're talking about applies also in family groups and group book clubs, all sorts of things, because it's human work. It's the human work that can make the difference. And that's what we want to talk about today. So what are we going to do today? What are we carrying? It's really about what all this means for our teams and why relationships skills can be hard to access under stress. Many of you were so generous and sent in your questions about how this might relate to you. And I have to say, we're going to be able to address a lot of those today. And I'm excited about that because those relationship skills can be hard. We're going to talk about how protective and cultural patterns show up in us and the people we serve, and how curiosity and civil resilience can help us respond more effectively.
Mary, I want to thank you for that because it sounds like when you're working with, how to show others protective and cultural patterns that can show up, it almost sounds like even if I know that I am in a personal relationship or a professional relationship, that stress management can show up in unexpected places and almost when you least expect it. Maybe you know you're under stress, but maybe you don't know that a specific pattern shows up, or maybe you don't know that you're doing something that could really stunt uh, the ability to be effective. And so it sounds like stress management can show up in those unexpected places when you intend to do the most impactful work.
All I know for myself, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. You think you're doing something well. I was just trying to clean the kitchen today and I dropped a whole bottle of cleaning fluid all over. And I was like, ratchet it up. Simple thing, a small problem. And I was so ratcheted up. And I'm like, oh, not my best self. And so even when we practice this work, we know that sometimes our best self shows up unexpectedly. And so that's why we encourage more practice, because that's what practice is what helps us get better, because it's going to happen all over in so many aspects of our life.
And I can appreciate that too, because I feel as though as much as folks may be in a space of being in the caring or in the helping profession, or working individual with this work, or working amongst teams with this work, it almost sounds like rather an individual is one-on-one, or rather they are in a group, whether it's administrative work or group dynamics in general, that this work can be helpful in working through stressful times.
For me, it was showed up on my team meeting this morning because I came in with all that energy. Everybody else came in with all their energy. And we were trying to work through something, and people could just feel a little bristly. We were a little bristly with each other. And at the end, one of my team members kind of said, I'm sorry for bringing that negative energy in. It happens all the time. And so it's just a question of when we recognize it, what can we do? So I'd love to, ask all of you, we're going to start a poll right now. And what most often gets in the way when your team is under stress? So if you want to answer the poll question, that would be great. So what often most gets in the way when your team is under stress? Is it miscommunication or misunderstanding? Is it defensiveness or blame? Maybe avoidance or shutting down? Maybe too many competing demands and not enough capacity? Difficulty staying connected under pressure, or different people reacting in different ways? I bet you can recognize yourself in that, Janelle.
I think I can. I think difficulty staying connected under pressure can be one, especially if you're a get her done type of person like me. I just let's get it done. So
Oh, yeah.
forget staying connected. Let's just get it done. So that poses a real risk for
Yeah.
someone like me in that mindset for sure.
It's definitely something we are always working on with our skills because that's something for me too, right? I'm so focused on I'd love to get it done. And then what? How can you interrupt me with your problem when I haven't done
Not right now.
it? So maybe we're ready to close the poll and see what the results are. Well, a lot of different answers here. Not too many people are avoiding, which is surprising to me because one of the things that definitely happens to me when my team's under stress, but a lot of miscommunication, defensiveness, sure, too many competing demands. We all feel that, right? And different people reacting in different ways. Absolutely. And I love this because we're going to be learning more about how all these can show up in a few minutes. But we can at least thank you for those of you who are able to vote because you demonstrated that we're definitely all kind of doing these kind of struggles together. So we can close the poll. Yeah, great. One of the things we want to say about all of that, oops, I think I skipped a slide. Yeah, okay. Teams have stressors, right? We just named some of them. And some of them are things like uncertainty. Some of these things can be potentially scary consequences. Lots of strong conflicting emotions can come, whether we're dealing with budget cuts at our team level, whether we're trying to facilitate with a team and somebody comes in with a question that's inappropriate or inappropriate behavior. We can feel really stressed by the whole thing. And maybe there's people around us are all having different reactions. We don't know how to manage all of that. And often we feel vulnerable and maybe even powerless by all these strong emotions. So one of the things we like to emphasize is that resilience can turn those stressors into strengths. And you can step back and say, okay, this is what's happening. It can actually be a strength. The other thing I like to mention is that resilience is a both and mindset. We're never going to have time where everything is all so perfectly going so well. We almost always in life, we're holding our challenges and our joys at the same time. It's going to be the budget cuts and the team members that are impacted so greatly by the work that we do. It's going to be the people we're facilitating who seem to not care or understand what we're trying to say, and those who are getting it, who are absorbing it and are changing their life, right? So being able to understand and hold both of those, that's one of the things that's a bottom line going to strengthen our resilience. So holding both of that at the same time is really good. The thing about resilience is not just about enduring challenges. We like to talk about resilience because it creates a foundation for thriving. We're all working together and we can all do things together.
I like that you mentioned that, Mary, about it creates a foundation for thriving. So the way how I think about this is almost as if this could be a two-parter, right? Rather, you're working directly with youth because again, the Dibble Institute, we have educational tools that help organizations who give education to young people and young adults. So that's direct implementation. However, let's say an individual is not directly implementing, but they're responsible for duties of the team who is. And so there's a lot of decisions that are being considered or being made that for the mission and vision of how we stay sustainable, how we do our work, how people in the community know us. It almost seems like whether you're in one position or the other or both, there can be some dynamic tension that exists there that can get in the way of people walking towards a mission. But if you can remember what you said, resilience is not just about enduring those challenges of what is the right thing to do to fulfill our mission and to keep us going, but also that we're working on the same things together. And sometimes we have to work through the tough stuff.
Many times. Life is about many times working through the tough stuff. So I like to spend some time now on talking about what gets in the way. Why aren't we always able to work through the tough stuff just flowing on the river? What happens instead, right? Well, it's really why smart people do unhelpful things because all of us do these unhelpful things and many of us know better. So even when young people or all of us know what healthy communication looks like, stress comes at us and it's harder for us to listen though we know we're supposed to do or stay curious. It's harder for us to stay calm or regulate our emotions. It's hard for us to repair after conflict or ask for what they need, right? So understanding that all of us can do that.
Yeah, it draws a couple of examples for me, and some of the experiences that I've had. This is when you're like, I'm really passionate about this. I'm directly implementing with youth. I've got this really good point. The entire class or group is following or chasing everything that's being said, and then boom, loud sound, or someone like burps or passes gas real loud, and everyone's laughing. And now I'm set over the top. Like I'm real stressed out. I feel like I'm not getting the point home. It just really feels like it diminished the salient points I was trying to make in front of the classroom. Or in other settings where it's like, can't you see that we're trying to make the decisions that help us stay active, help keeps the lights on, help keeps income flowing in and resources available for our work. And sometimes when you receive news of like, hey, this funding has been cut, or hey, we no longer have this funding resource, it I've had the experiences of that direct implementation experience as well as the bad news, right? And so
We all have.
well
Yeah.
intentioned and wanting to do the good work, I can run into the habit of becoming less effective because the loud sound threw me off or the bad news threw me off instead of remembering the resilience of the team, right?
Well, and you talk about that so well, right? Because something happens and it's not necessarily good. So just drop a little thumbs up emoji reaction or comment if you've left a meeting wondering, how did that become so difficult? Why didn't we solve anything? Why do we have to keep having the same conversation? So many little thumbs up coming our way, right? Because we have this, right? We all have these issues. Yeah, that we're trying to deal with something and it's just not going smoothly, right? Even the meeting I had with my team this morning, I was like, okay, I didn't, somehow that felt a little rougher than it needed to be, right? So why did that happen for me and for other people in all these meetings? And that's what's important to look at, right? Oops, sorry. Okay, I get excited. Um, just want to acknowledge that we have two paths that can have very different outcomes, right? So conflict happens, whether it's in a facilitation group, whether it's in your family personal group, whether it's in your team at work, conflict happens. We can react and we can have some disconnection, or we can be curious and move into repair. Like, which path are we going to take? Same conflict, because conflict is going to happen. We have to embrace that. But how can we change from that? So let's look at this reactivity thing for a little bit so we can understand what's happening in there, right? Why start people do unhealthy things? Under pressure, our brains shift into protection. These reactions are called protective patterns, and we're going to spend some time on this. So our stress reaction, we're going along. For me, I was cleaning my kitchen a little bit today, and the bottle fell. There's a stress event. I have a reaction. My protective patterns start going up. I have a peak, and it takes a while to calm down. I might feel depleted afterwards. Or with our team, we're having people. We were talking about something that was a little bit contentious, and where are we going to spend our resources? So people are starting feeling vulnerable. I'm not going to be able to do this. We start having our protective patterns start emerging as together as a team. We have a peak. What are we going to do with our energies? Are we going to follow this strategy? And it can take a little while to calm down and feel depleted. In all these situations, that's what our stress reaction can look like. So what are these protective patterns that are so important? I keep talking about. They emerge when we feel vulnerable, whether it's physically, emotionally, socially, mentally, economically. They evolve to keep us safe. They're protective patterns because they can protect us, and they're not always helpful. So one key thing here is understanding when it's helpful and when it's not, right? We have listed 6 common protective patterns. We're not going to talk about all of them today, but I just want to go through them so you have a sense of what they are. Distrusting, that's when I distrust maybe myself or others. Maybe I feel like, oh, I can't do something, or I've forgotten something, I don't know how to do it, I'm not ready for the webinar. That's distrusting. Hypervigilance. Yeah, exactly. Hypervigilance. That's when we're scanning always what trouble is going to happen. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen this? What's going to happen now? I know my grandbaby was born last week, and I was very in hypervigilance the whole day because I'm like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I was really anxious because it can be such a nerve-wracking experience, birth. Hyper caretaking. This is when we care for others, maybe not attend to our own needs. And we're doing that caretaking is good, but hyper caretaking, we're doing that because we don't want to feel vulnerable. So that's kind of one of the tricks between caretaking and hyper caretaking. Then we have avoiding. That's when we're not paying attention because it's just too hard to deal with. And defending, that's when we're criticizing. I mean, we feel like other people are criticizing us, so we're standing up. And attacking, I have to say, this is something I do. Attacking is when we're blaming other people or getting on them because we feel vulnerable. All these things when we feel vulnerable.
Tell the
So
truth, Mary. Did you blame your team because you dropped something in the kitchen today?
good question. I didn't blame them. In fact, what happens is a very kind team member shared, I'm so sorry that happened. And it's amazing. Again, when we're in feeling vulnerable, right? They emerge when we feel vulnerable. So I was tempted to blame my husband for not leaving the lid on, though it could have been me, right? My protective pattern was rising. And then I'm like, no. And then the connection helped diffuse it. She said, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I was like, oh, then I don't feel so vulnerable. I didn't screw everybody's day up by being late because it takes a long time to clean cleaning solution off your floor. I was late to my meeting. I can move out of it. So it's just an example how attacking can come or avoiding. These are the things that I tend to do. All of us tend to have one or two styles that we lean into, right? So I I love your example. In our meeting today, when we're talking about each other, it was a little, people were having trouble not like moving into attacking, like, okay, you're the reason we haven't gotten this done, or avoiding. I tend to do that too. Like, okay, I'm going to pretend that we have enough money in the bank to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm not going to look at it closely, right? Because it's just too painful. So these are just two examples that of those kinds of how protective patterns can emerge. So we're going to talk a little while on 3 protective patterns more specifically, so you can get a sense of how they might act in real life, right? Whether they come for you or for those you love or those in your team. Again, hypervigilance is constantly scanning for danger or problems. I need to stay on guard, right? So it can be helpful because it identifies threats early. Like, okay, if you're the one who's watching the budget, the CFO perhaps is always like, okay, this number's getting low, our bank account's here, maybe this funding is not coming in, right? You're always doing this. Like, I've got to make sure there's money in the account to handle everything. I need to stay on guard, right? So it can be helpful. But it can also be harmful because maybe the person who's in charge of finance is always like, well, we're never going to have the money for that. Nope, that's not going to come in. And everybody walks around scared when it's not warranted. Or it might limit connection or prevent appropriate risk taking for growth.
Yeah, I like that you talked about the two ways in which it can be helpful, right? It keeps a person alert of, the necessary steps they can take to protect a budget. However, it can stunt the ability to take a risk to help. So in programs that we have to offer at the Dibble Institute, like Mind Matters, we try to simplify this for youth in our teaching tools. There's an example of where we talk about 5 emotions. Like we riddle it down to the 5 emotions, and one of those emotions we talk about fear and how too much fear can stop what you said there, the appropriate exposure to like trying new things, as opposed to too little of it can expose you to risk and danger. So I really like that example of how this can impact, even in our adult lives or our professional or personal lives, of how that hypervigilance can swing in and stunt the the growth trajectory of an organization, an individual, because it can be harmful if it's almost taking over a person's way of thinking and decision making.
Yeah, it can be like, I'm never going to try any new budgets. I mean, I'm never going to try any new programs because maybe we don't have enough money, or I'm not going to try a new marketing strategy, or I'm not going to try this because I'm so scared of what might happen. Maybe we'll run out of money, right? It's
Yeah.
so understanding when it's appropriate vigilance and when is it hyper vigilant. And part of that is always understanding, do I feel vulnerable? Is this why? And is that justified vulnerability, or maybe I'm reacting to something I don't need to. The next one we'll talk about is hyper caretaking. And I'm choosing this because so many of us in the helping professions use hyper caretaking, right? That's when we're over accommodating for other people, not expressing needs, resentment later, right? let's make everyone happy. And I have to say, I do this at certain instances. I'm like, oh, I want to take care of my team. So I want to, oh, you don't have to work late. I'll take on that project. Oh,
Mhm.
don't worry. I'm going to do that extra budget. Make sure you have time with your family. Oh, whatever it is, I can move into that mode. Like I want to make sure everyone's happy. And there's a reason it can be helpful. It can help others. It helps me feel needed. I'm so important in the teams. I'm doing all these great things. I feel connected to people. And like the other protective patterns, it can be harmful. It neglects our own needs. It doesn't honor self reliance and capacity of others. I'm not letting them step up and volunteer or take on the jobs that they need to do.
I like that, Mary, too, for the reason of it can seem so simple. Like, I've got it because I know it'll be done right. I've got it. No, I can
Yes.
take care of it. And eventually it becomes so much, like in the restaurant industry, they say you're in the weeds. You have so much going on, you don't even know how to say you need help, or you don't know what to tell others you need help with. But there's so many little tasks that they become monumental. And so it helps because it lessens the load for others. But I like that you said, and that taking it on, like, I've got it, just give it to me. I hear things like that person not saying no eliminates my ability, or it stunts my ability to be resourceful and impactful to them and doing my work to help their work too. And it kind of can create this culture of like not feeling useful if someone takes on all of the little things all the time. In the
Absolutely.
same scope, the person who takes on things all the time might feel underappreciated if too much is taken on and not enough appreciation.
Can also happen like in budgets. Like, okay, I'm not going to share that we actually don't have enough money to do all this, right? Because I'm going to just keep everyone happy. I'm not, and then that can certainly blow up in our face, right? So just understanding other people have self-reliance, honoring that capacity, and inviting other people to step up where necessary is really an important. It's an important part of resilience in general, but understanding hyper caretaking and when it's coming in. The other thing hyper caretaking can come in is taking care of other people's emotional needs. Oh, they look
Mm,
sad. I'm going to do this so they don't feel sad. Well, maybe they need to feel sad. Feeling
mm,
all of our emotions is an important part of resilience, understanding the whole range and being part of that, right? I know I can do that. I can jump in with people and like try to fix it instead of allowing people the range of emotions that they need to have. And it's
yeah,
because I feel vulnerable. I don't want to, it's hard to be around people who have sometimes strong emotions, but sometimes doing that is what we're called to do. So
I
that's
like that.
another way hyper caretaking can come up. The last one we'll talk about is defending. That's explaining, interrupting, or countering before fully listening. I'm not the problem, right? Of course it can help, right? We take a stand, we hold a boundary, other people can hear our point of view. In that meeting, we're in that meeting and we're talking about how resources are being used, right? I'm going to do it this way, but it can interrupt others, shut down listening, escalate other reactions. I was just in a meeting the other day, it was happening, and I was like, wow. When you watch two people, like one person moving into defending and the other person's just trying to explain, and you're like, wow, they must feel vulnerable to do that because they're not listening to what the other person's trying to say. So watching that in real life can be hard to see. Yeah, Janelle.
I think this Mary, again, it's interesting how we look at these protective patterns and they seem so self-explanatory, right? But then when you start explaining the examples, I start thinking of ways that which it comes up. So, you know, again, example, facilitation mode, right? My goal is to be as impactful with youth as possible, but in ways that can become less effective is if I take on a defending approach. It's my way, as if I can't learn from the youth that I am intending to serve. Or an individual is taking an approach of anything that you say in this classroom, I have all the information that you need. And so that defending of my own stance as opposed to listening can really lessen the effectiveness of that uh, intrapersonal dynamic that can exist in classrooms, but in boardrooms, right?
And often defending comes out of that vulnerability of identity, right? I'm vulnerable around my identity as a professor, as a teacher, as a facilitator, and therefore I have to hold all the knowledge.
How
Well,
dare you challenge me?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I want to emphasize that these protective patterns are embedded in what we're more familiar with: fight, flight, freeze, or face, right? Or fawn. Um, because attacking and defending is just a simpler way of describing fight. We don't necessarily say, "Oh, I'm in fighting mode," or "I'm in flight mode," but we can say, "Oh, I'm avoiding. I have decided to watch TV today rather than do what I need to do because I just can't bear to deal with what I have to preparation I have to do for the meeting, whatever it is, right?" Um, so we name them so they can be easier to recognize. And with that, here we have another poll here. And I just want you to put in, what pattern shows up most for you? I know for most of us, we do different ones at different times, right? Like I said, attacking is my primary one. And of course, my poor husband gets the attacking more than anyone else just because he's closest to me. So I feel vulnerable when he comes in and I just, whatever. But I'll do all of them at different times. And I don't know about you, Janelle. I don't know if you have some that show up more than others for you.
I can appreciate that you saying that we can demonstrate all of these depending on the circumstance because I looked at a few of these and I thought, hypervigilance, for example, that shows up if you know me or if you've had a conversation with me, you know I love to travel. Like you may not be able to see it on the call, but I have a whole bracelet stack because I love to travel and I love going places. But hypervigilance kicks up for me when the circumstances poses a lot of uncertainty. So if I'm uncertain of what my transportation is going to look like, or if I'm going to be in a place where people are going to help me if I need help, then hypervigilance kicks up. However, I do become skeptic if there's a situation where I'm feeling again yet a lot of uncertainty and trying to identify if someone is being truthful or honest or forthright with how they're presenting to me or others that I care about. So it's not just a me thing; it's the people I care about. So those things do kick up in different settings. So I'm glad that you shared that.
Let's close the poll and see how you voted. So look at this. So we have a lot of avoiding. Yeah, avoiding is really common. Fewer hyper caretake people doing hyper caretaking than I expected, but some definitely hypervigilance, defending, attacking. A lot of people do not like to admit that. And maybe I'm just in the extreme minority that I do a lot of attacking. But yeah, thank you for sharing. I hope that it helps you recognize a little bit more about the protective patterns that may come up in you or others. We can close the response. Yeah. Um, so I want to talk about one other type of pattern that's really common when our teams get stuck. And this is our cultural patterns. Cultural patterns are all those messages about how to act or not act. All the shoulds that happen in life, our beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors, right? They're usually passed down from our family or community, and they're and form our identity. They're unique to us. So we're the only ones that has the whole package of shoulds in our head. Everybody else has a different package of shoulds in their head, a different set of cultural patterns. This can come up in so many ways in teams. It can come up in, do you be on time to meetings? Do you listen to your phone? Do you watch your phone during meetings? How do you interrupt? In our team, we learned that there's some of us who like to talk really fast, and all sorts of ideas are generated when we talk really fast, and it's really fun. And those are the kind of families we were raised in. And there are other people on our team who talk slowly and have learned in their cultural pattern, you don't interrupt, because when you interrupt, you're rude. So it's very hard for the people who like to talk very fast and the people who don't want to interrupt to be on the same team without realizing, oh, that's a cultural pattern. Neither side is trying to be rude to each other. Neither side is slow or not thinking. Everybody is wants to be part and contribute to the conversation. But we have to learn how to navigate these different cultural patterns. And by naming them as cultural pattern, not as bad or good, then we move around shame. Both protective patterns and cultural patterns. One of the most important part about this is saying that none of these types of patterns are shameful. They're not bad. They're not, oh, that has to be changed. They're things that we all have and can protect us, can help us. They do give us a lot of good, and they can be harmful. And we need to understand when and where each one is working in that way. So what kind of cultural patterns can emerge for teams? Maybe your team is an avoiding team, and we don't talk about problems. That's not so. If somebody brings up a problem, I've been in those teams. Somebody brings up the topic, like, oh, we don't talk about that. Or maybe always need to be right. So everybody spends all their time defending, and that's the cultural pattern of the team. Maybe it's we move so fast we don't listen. Maybe harmony matters more than honesty. I've been in those groups too, right? Where everybody's like, oh, this is so wonderful. And it's like nobody's actually saying what's going on.
Yeah, it's interesting how cultural patterns can influence how someone goes, how an individual or a person can go about doing their work. It's almost like the unspoken rules within the environment. And oh, no, 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 we don't dare bring that up. We don't dare question the boss's ideas, or no, 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 we don't dare go against what they say. But secretly on the inside, I think I'm a big reader. I like reading books, hence my glasses. Just kidding. But I think in one of Brene Brown's books, Daring Greatly, she says this can exist and is a form of betrayal that we often don't think about, but it is this lingering thing that hides deep within us that doesn't feel right or feel authentic to our inner selves because we're not speaking out loud, the thing that helps us to right set within the body of a team. So that sort of silent brewing or stewing is simple, it's small, but over time it builds, right? So I like that you said where team level cultural patterns can exist if the mindset is harmony matters more than the honesty. And truly, that honesty can be the thing that sets a new trajectory for the team, right?
Absolutely. So this is talking about different ways teams might get stuck
Mm.
because it's the cultural pattern that have been created and being able to name. And part of naming it as a cultural pattern, it's not like, oh, we've all been bad. It's like, no, this is the should that we've developed together. And can we unshould that? Can we move it into a different way?
I
Right.
like that.
And it's true
Good.
for so many things, right? So
Mm.
understanding how cultural patterns, back to this little graph, there is one thing that can help change so much of that, and that is curiosity. We're going to move into discussion of curiosity. Curiosity is what we call a resilient mindset, right? When stress is high, our brains often move quickly toward judgment, assumptions, or certainty. This is a mess. What's happening here? This is a mess. My husband certainly could have said that when he came into the room today, and it was cleaner everywhere, and I was losing it, right? And said, he's like, tell me what happened here, right?
It's
And
true. It's true. It's
yes,
for the person who like is very balanced and well figured out, and then when stress is high and they walk into a situation and they're like, I don't know what any of this is. I don't, this is such a mess. Like this, how I don't even know what happened here. It happens, right?
absolutely. And understanding like curiosity can actually jumpstart a better conversation, right? It helps us pause. That's the most important thing. So we pull out of judgment, assumptions, and certainty, and we understand more and respond more with choice. So when we're dealing with protective patterns and when we're dealing with cultural patterns, being curious about, oh, is this a protective pattern? How might I feel vulnerable? There was a conflict. There was a text going around, and I was watching it go, and I was like feeling really woo hoo hoo. And for me, just stepping back and go, oh, why do I feel vulnerable here? Oh, I feel vulnerable. And recognizing that I felt vulnerable meant I didn't have to step in and people were able to resolve it. I was like, oh, okay. So curiosity helped us to understand that was how I was being. Maybe you're curious about how other people are being. Understanding all that can make all the difference. It opens us up to learning about ourselves. Like I said, how am I being in the situation? Am I contributing to the stuckness of the team? Are my protective and cultural patterns in play? Maybe I'm thinking everybody should be doing this, but we haven't even had a real conversation about what that is. Maybe that's part of the issue. And we can be curious about others. Help me understand why you think this is not a good idea for us now. Help me understand why you don't understand the concept we've just been talking. Can I ask a clarifying question around that? All sorts of curious questions can make a huge difference here. So when you notice a protective pattern showing up, like pausing, noticing the story you're telling yourself, asking one curious question, and then choosing your next response. That's what leads us to getting better at it, right? So here, the stress event comes. We find out that the budget's being cut. We're not going to get the funding we need. We don't get the client. Okay, I'm starting to feel my protective patterns, but I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to pause that reaction. Okay, take a few deep breaths. Okay, how else can I respond? Maybe I can think of this as an opportunity. Maybe we can have a good discussion about it and I can choose a different resilience skill. So I'll still go up, but not as high.
So, Mary, I know that you and we've talked about this in preparing for the webinar, but even as you say it now, right? Yeah, you just gave us a poll of what protective pattern shows up most for us. But it's almost like I see this slide and I see the pause as, okay, if I recognize and I understand what my protective pattern is, and I know that I'm working with a team, the pause can help me to slow down for the sake of my team too, not just for myself. If I
Ah,
notice the pause is needed, it helps give others the space so they can so they can function well within the dynamics of a team too. But the pause, it, as you mentioned, it also helps me because it helps me not to, like the other red slide, go as high to the top of that stress event, right?
yeah, one of the things we encourage people to do all the time is breathing mindfully. 3 to 5 deep breaths, as you know, before we start a meeting, before we go into this. So let's say we're doing some discussions around budget, it gets heated. Let's take 3 to 5 deep breaths together. Changes the tenor of the conversation. People calm down, they're more clear, they okay. Because you felt some protective patterns emerging, or you felt a cultural pattern in the team that wasn't helpful, right? Just one example of the many types of centering skills that we can use to say, okay, it's a resilient skill we can choose and keep more in the green zone. I do want to emphasize that how we are is our most important gift, right? And this is why we do the work that we do in the world, right? This quote, children learn from the way adults manage frustration, stay focused in the face of distractions, and shift tactics when needed. And the reality is, we all do this from each other. We're all picking up from each other all the time. Modeling is where we actually do most of us are learning. And that's why how we are with each other really matters, right? If we want to be a change agent, we suggest micro habits. Just try a few deep breaths when you can. Try the resilient mindset of curiosity when possible, right? A few options make all the difference. And then people start learning. One of the words I use all the time is yet. We haven't done this yet. We don't know how to do it yet. Yet is a very powerful word. And then I can see other members of my team are starting to use yet, right? We don't know that yet, right? Because as soon as you start doing things and people feel like, oh, that's working, then they start doing it too, right? Because they understand the power of it. And we can mentor using curiosity, compassionate questions, and encouragement. One thing that we'd like to encourage people to say is, I'm not my most resilient self at this moment, or I'm not my most resilient self yet. Telling people, okay, giving people a clue on what's going on inside can really help. And thinking just for yourself, like, oh, I have this reaction. Even if you do it after, why am I reacting this way? Understanding our own vulnerabilities and tapping into that can be super powerful.
Mary, I think everything that you mentioned, how we are is our most important gift. How we are is directly equivalent to our most important gift. And so that sounds loving. It sounds affirming. It sounds uplifting. It sounds like a warm hug, right? I'm a hugger. I can use that. But what do you say, Mary, to the individual or the person or the team who may be on this call or maybe, listening to this webinar at a later date? Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But what do you say to the individual that hears this and might still be in a space where the environment is hostile or toxic and it doesn't feel like me understanding a protective pattern isn't the thing that's going to help this environment shift, or it's not going to stop this individual from behaving a certain way around me or another team? What do you say to the individual that might be feeling that way, even though they're hearing this?
We all have felt that way. I have definitely been in those situations. I have definitely worked on teams where the people did not understand any of this and were super hostile and toxic, right? All we can control is ourselves. And by controlling ourselves, really, it's our best lever for controlling our environment. It's a very hard lesson to learn. Honestly, it took me decades to understand that because I always felt like, well, if I only fix other people, the system, the change, it'll make all the difference. The reality is, how we fix systems is changing ourselves, because by changing ourselves, then we change our relationships. By changing our relationships is how we change the team. Maybe the particular team you're on will not change. Maybe those people will never be open to it. And you have to recognize that and decide at some point either to leave or put up the kind of boundaries that you can continue to work there. Yes, it's not going to change the world necessarily, but bit by bit, this is all we can do. And so we really emphasize that this is the most important thing to do.
And and I can receive that. What about for the person who thinks like, oh, can I even say I'm not my most resilient self? Is there different phraseology that maybe they can use to help them with that thinking or to say it in that way, but maybe not say those exact words?
Yeah, certainly. And it could be I'm not my most resilient self yet, right? It
Yep.
could be I'm working on this now. What do I need to do next? I'm going to take a deep breath. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to say, okay, but it's just recognizing that we're all works in progress. And none of us should have shame about the fact that we have protective and cultural patterns, because we all do. And we're all going to get better, right? With intention. And this is what we suggest. Like, this takes energy, it takes practice. It's one of the reasons we include the resilient mindset of courage, because it takes courage to make these kind of changes. It's easier to feel like, oh, if I just continue to the same path, but we know what the same path can bring. It brings us into teams that are getting stuck, the conflict that can be harmful. And then you really are working in a toxic environment because you haven't been able to make those changes. So when teams get stuck, we suggest noticing those patterns, figuring out what's happening, right? Pause your reactions, where you choose curiosity, repair quickly, say I'm sorry, I was not my most resilient self. Can we do that again? And listen deeply to each other, right? High performing teams don't avoid conflict. It's always going to be there. It's they learn how to move it through it together with the connected skills that are so important for this. We have lots more on this. If you want more, we have a new app, the We Are Resilient app, both on Android and Apple. We have team trainings and facilitator workshops. I would love to bring this to any of your teams that are interested. We have coach certification for people who want to be certified in this work and bring it to their team. We have an advice column that's just fun. You can look up Ms. Resilient on Substack, and lots of encouraging newsletter. You can find all of this at dovetaillearning.org, or email me. I'd love to hear from you, Mary@dovetaillearning.org. I also, as I said, I have this book, The Heart of Resilience, and you can find it on our website. You can find it on Amazon if you want to give Bezos your money. And we have audio versions if you prefer to listen to it audio. Um, so any questions?
Yeah.
We'd love to open the chat for, or the Q&A if there are any questions.
Yes, and while those questions are coming up, you've heard me mention the Dibble Institute and some educational tools that are available for those working directly with youth. You've heard me mention some tools such as Love Notes, Relationship Smarts Plus, and Mind Matters. They're widely used programs if you work directly with youth, and they're relationship skills for teaching youth and young adults. And we believe in our products, and we love that. We are grateful for Mary for sharing how recognizing those protective patterns can either help teens or keep them stuck. And that may also be true of your desire to be effective in implementation strategies. If you want any copies of our programs, feel free to scan the QR code, or you can email me directly, Jonelle at the Dibble Institute, and I can share with you more information. We can get you free copies to look at. Otherwise, while we are moving forward, next slide. Thank you for joining us today. Just a few quick things before we open up the chat. Please keep your browsers open after we end. There will be a brief survey that pops up automatically. And we want to just make you aware, reiterate again, that this webinar will be available in about 3 days, along with some of the handouts and attachments that we have to share for you. And if you need a certificate, that we have answers for those questions around a certificate. And now I'd like to open it up to questions and or answers, questions so that we can provide some answers.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for any of those that might come in, Janelle, how do you feel like this lands in your life for your team? Or
I feel as though I recognized how, in understanding those cultural patterns, or sorry, the protective patterns, how they can exist when you said in the unexpected of places when stressors are high. So I even recognize how sometimes, even while I'm well intentioned, I can zone in, I can become really zoned in on, hey, I've got work to be done. And so I might be participating in avoidant behavior because I'm not listening to the needs of the people who want my time and attention. And I feel like that extends family to friends. Maybe some of my coworkers, I hope they don't tell me that, but if they do, I'd be open to receiving it. But also, I think there's so many opportunities to explore and how I may do those things within myself too, right? Not just outward towards team, but in and of myself. But yes, absolutely. This was very helpful, and it was so supportive to even me looking to be helpful and of value in the places where I go serve.
Yeah, and I hope those of you listening have an understanding of how some of this might be operating for you or for your teams. And I look forward to any questions you have to send to me, Mary@dovetaillearning.org, MERI. And yeah, I hope that this is helpful.
Well, I see, Mary, that there are no questions in the Q&A.
Oh,
And I just want to, before we end the time and maybe give folks a little bit of extra time on their hands back today, Mary, I want to thank you for your time, your wisdom, and your expertise.
there's one
For
question. There is one question I'm going to answer, right? So the
oh,
question is, how do you deal with the youth that's directly getting dysregulated with your presence when you're addressing a situation that has occurred with them, and you're empathizing with them, and it seems not to be working and just keeps getting them even more dysregulated, right? That happens so often, right? Because we know co-regulation can make a difference, but not everybody's open to being co-regulated. So the most important thing for yourself is to stay regulated yourself. So that's when we're like, take 3 to 5 deep breaths. And you can even say, I'm sorry, Susan, I need to take 3 to 5 deep breaths, and then we can continue the conversation if you're interested in breathing with me. Maybe they're going to keep moving off. But sometimes people are like, okay, and they just pause. It's grabbing that pause that can help you or the other person, right? None of these things are going to work in all situations. That's why when we teach our centering skills, we have a basket of 6, because I know sometimes in dysregulated situations, I need to choose different ones depending on the situation. And it's like nice to have 6 different ideas. You can find a lot of that stuff on our website to learn more about the centering skills. We see curiosity always being one, and always knowing that you have a choice and naming that choice with that student. Okay, Susan, I'm going to choose to do this right now because I know I can do that. And talking out loud sometimes about our processes can help at least model for them, even if they don't engage at the moment. You're planting a seed for them later. Yeah.
thank you so much for that, Mary. That was very rich and very fruitful. I just want to echo a sentiment dropped in the chat. Thank you for this information. A lot to take in and think about. Our team has been going through some challenges, so I'm happy this has come my way. Lots of great food for thought. And I'm sure as you're seeing it, just as I am, a lot of thumbs ups and heart emojis flying across the screen. To all of
Yeah.
you who are
And
out there. Oh,
just
yes.
one reminder, I was going to say, obviously today we just did a very small part of the We Are Resilient approach. There's 16 different skills that we teach, and we didn't get into any of them. But just so you know that this was just an overview, to a taste, so you can understand what the approach could be about. Yeah.
I'm so excited that others can learn more from you, Mary. So again, you can reach out to Mary and access her wonderful resources. A replay of this webinar will be available just in case you say, I didn't catch it, including the handouts that are in the chat. They will also be made available after this webinar. Thank you to all of you who have joined our August webinar. Just a reminder for next month, if you could please, next slide, keep in mind and register for our next second Wednesday webinar. It's on September 9th, just right after Labor Day. From challenge to opportunity, pivoting a Prius program to community-based implementation, which will be held by our webinar speaker, Karen Johnson from the Trinity Church. We hope to see you all there. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for spending a little light and love our way. And Mary, as always, thank you so much for being a resource to all of our participants today. And most importantly, to me, it was so happy to have you. Thank you.
Oh, delighted. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.